wonderful crowd. Really, they were familiar with my work. I guess they watch a lot of television. They put on their own variety show. They had a singer. They had a piano player who played is it Christmas bells? They finally had to just lead him off. Something went entirely wrong, and then where it really took a wrong direction. One of the inmates got up. He was one of the senior ones. He said, "You know, there's a lot of problems. I think they just opened an animal shelter next door." And he said, "A lot of us are in here because a dog has spoken to us and told us to commit certain crimes. Do not pay attention to a dog. A dog will mislead you every time. They are silly." And this started the audience kind of a hubbub, and they actually had to stop the show, and the warden had to calm everyone down. My manager and my sound guy told me we got some good stuff. I have a little bit of it here. It was the last minute. If this was, I think we got at the beginning of the show. It was a wonderful crowd. And let me. This is just your. They can smooth out all the screens. It went later. I think I put it on the one. Now, just before, there's just a little more of this bit. After the show, they said, "You have to go to and see the head administrator. He heard that you did a joke about a strawberry or something. We happened to record it. I had to go in and tell him the joke, and his response is interesting."
"I was walking along the grounds today with one of your fellow inmates, and we spied your gardener pushing a wheelbarrow filled with fertilizer. And we said to him, 'What are you going to do with that fertilizer?' And he said, 'I'm going to put it on the strawberries.' And your fellow inmate turned to me and he said, 'You see, we put cream and sugar on ours, and they call us crazy.'"
Thank you very much. That was just a little silly bit. I thought I had to do that. But this is wonderful that you all turned out. Happy Father's Day. This was great. It was from all different... I just wish they hadn't put the date under there. But a lot of them were fairly topical. I dropped the F-bomb a couple of times in there. I didn't think that they were done back then. I think what I'll do is answer... Bill, hi, thanks for being here. Bill Kinnison. A lot of friends here. Great friends. I thought I had more than this planned. But I think what we have... I want to thank the Pabst Blue Ribbon people, and afterwards we're going to come back to the back and we're going to have some sandwiches if you'd like. If not, I know there's other things to do. I think I'd like to answer a few questions. If anybody has questions they'd like to ask. We'll discuss a few things you've seen here on the screen. Fernwood tonight was not improvised. It was fully scripted every day, but we would go off sometimes. And at first I'd say, could I add something? Could I do something? And finally I thought, well, the heck with it. I'll just say it. We would take about 40, 45 minutes. They'd cut it down to 25 or 30. And so it appeared improvised. And at the time, a lot of people thought it was a real cable television show. They really did, because it was the first one of its type. And I like to think this is a true story. Ringo Starr was a big fan. And they said, "Ringo, would you like to go on the show? You could appear on the show." He said, "Oh, I don't want to go to Ohio, though." But the first year it was called Fernwood Tonight. We'd have a few celebrities on. And the celebrities in LA were all friends of Norman Lear, and they loved the show so much, and they all wanted to be on. And we said, how could we fix it so they would be on our show? We're from Fernwood, Ohio. So the second year they called it America Tonight. We moved to a little town in California, fictionally. And then all the celebrities came out. Alta Loma. the unfinished stool capital, or unfinished furniture. I'm confused and waiting for Guffman. That was a stool capital. This was the unfinished furniture capital. And I remember my idol, Burt Lancaster, was at some press event once for it. He was a big fan. I idolized Burt Lancaster. And he didn't know who the heck I was except for this show. He wasn't sure if I was for real or not. And I came out and I said, Burt Lancaster, you've seen him on Trapeze, The Black Pirate. I started naming his credits. And I said, and I'm sorry, Mr. Lancaster, I didn't have time to memorize the whole list you gave me. And he had a big grin on his face. He came over and just picked me up like that and set me down. So we were very popular with the Hollywood crowd. And I remember Anne Murray, one of the most embarrassing moments, Anne Murray, who I thought was just wonderful. And I was so in awe of her. And she came out and she was Canadian. And we broke for commercial, and I didn't know what the heck to say to her. And I'd spent some time in Canada, and I finally turned to her. I said, I've got to say something. I turned, I said, Anne, what city are you from in Toronto? And she said, well, Fred, Toronto is a city. I said, oh, and the music started, and I never got to talk to her afterwards. All right, any questions anyone wants to ask about any of these shows, or silent movies? I'm pretty conversant with silent films. The comedy situation today. Is there a question?
Yes.
I have one. So how does the Roseanne thing happen? Because, like, I know Martin Mull was in it first. Did they write you in, or did...
Martin Mull, Roseanne and her husband at the time, well, Tom Arnold, they were big fans of Fernwood. And Martin was on the show, and I was with them at a party once. I said, wouldn't it be funny if I came on as Martin's boss? Because he was kind of I was his sidekick. If I came on as his boss, they said, we'd love to have on the show. So later that year, they called and they said, we'd love to have you come on to be his gay boyfriend. And I said, that isn't, what I had in mind. So I was pretty cocky. Then I know, I got out of it. So about a year later, Martin called. He said, the writers have asked me if you'd like to come on. We will be gay lovers, we will be married, it'll be the first gay marriage on television, and we will adopt a child. I said, this is too good to resist. So I said, yes. So we went on, and my duty, the first show, I did not want to play it as a gay stereotype. As you saw in the wedding, I played it very, very straight. The time I would be talking to him, I'd straighten his tie. I was very protective of him. As the shows went on, who did we have on? Ruta Lee.
Ruta Lee.
We had a segment where Ruta Lee was starting to dish the dirt about all the stars, and by about the 4th episode, I was just camping. More stories! But I'm sure there's a lot of horrific stories about Roseanne. She treated us very well. I love being on the show. As a guest, you come on a show like that, and you get through the first time they block a scene, and that's when the trouble starts, after the first scene, because you just nailed it the first time. And they said, let's run it again, Roseanne. She said, no, fuck it, let's move on. I said, oh, this is great, we only have to do it once. Rosie, we got to do it. No, we'll do it tonight. So that night, we would tape it the first time, and I nailed it. Rosie, let's take it again. Fuck it, we're moving on. So I got through the show. It was always wonderful to go in at 10 in the morning, read through, and they'd send us home because Rosie had rewrites. So it was a great time. I loved being on that show.
Could you talk a little bit more about, you have such amazing chemistry with Martin Mull, and I
Oh my
was
God.
tracked with him.
Yeah.
Like how you guys met, we'd love to hear that
Well,
story.
I went to see him once. I'm a good friend with Robert Klein, the comic, and I think Martin opened for Robert Klein at the Troubadour. And I'd never seen Martin Mull before, and I said, this guy is funny. This guy does not take easy targets. He went out of his way. He was very, very funny. One day they called me. They said they're doing a show called Fernwood tonight. They want you as the host. I said, gee, that's great. I'd like to be the host. I just spent a year at Second City. And we did a sketch there about an amateur hour, Ted Mack amateur hour, and I was the host. And but I got in and I found I would not be the host, I would be the co-host. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'd done a sitcom. I said, I'm going to be a sitcom star, some space patrol thing. And they said, well, they said, come on. And I said, no, everyone recommend me? I said, I don't want to be like an Ed McMahon. I started naming off people that would be better in the job than me. And they said, well, don't recommend other people. We're interested in you. So I said, I really don't want to do it. So then they called and they said, well, you just come in and sit through. We're going to rehearse for about 2 weeks and we'll find someone else. So I said, okay. So after about 3 days, we laughed so hard, we had so much fun that I said, you know, I'd like to be a part of this. So that's how I became a regular on the show. In the first show, I was supposed to move down the couch like Ed McMahon did. And after the first show, they redid it and they just kept me next to Martin. And it was great chemistry, and I just loved working with Martin. He would hold a joke in his mind. I would suggest a joke, then he'd say, yeah, yeah. And we'd go through a 5-6 minute segment, and he'd come back, and I'd pull the joke, and he had the punchline. So it's just always a pleasure to work with Martin Maul. I hope we'll work together again. Alan Rucker, maybe you could get something going and make that happen. Anyone in the house who has a cloud in the industry, Fred will work with Martin Maul. All right. Yes, questions?
Right here.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been to the Tonight Show a few times, and how many times have you been on the show, and how do you, how well do you like working with Mr. Leno?
Oh, Jay Leno.
Yeah.
I always say that's the greatest job you have, because you go in, you rehearse. They give you a script sometimes just that morning. You rehearse it once. Jay calls you up on the stage, and he'll ask me, well, Fred, what do you think of this joke? And I've vetoed some jokes, and I've also some jokes he wants to cut out. I said, Jay, I think this joke will work. And he always listens to me. That night you do it, you finish, you go home, you watch it. It's my favorite job, because there's no rewrites, no notes afterwards. And I hope to do more of them. And I think Jay Leno is wonderful. I know he's got a lot of criticism. I don't want to get into the whole Jay Leno, Conan O'Brien thing. I think they were both mistreated. I think they're both going to succeed and do very well. Jay is a legendary comedian. Conan O'Brien appeals to a younger crowd. He is sensational. I just wish there was time to watch all of them. I think they're both going to do very well.
But the question was, how many times were you on?
Oh, how many times? Oh, I don't know. I think actually, I gave you such interesting insights there. Is there a number here? Let's see, is it 90 or 91? I don't know. Could someone Google that? No, I remember I was on with Tony Bennett when he turned 80, and it was my 80th appearance. And I kept making clear, I said, I am not 80. This is my 80th appearance. Tony looked better than I did, and he was 80. So I think I did moving on towards 100. It was always great. And always great fun to do it. And all right. You know, here's another thing I'm saying here. What's this? Fred is stumbling. People always say, Fred, you're just a master of improv. I really am not. It scares me to death. I spent a year at Second City in Chicago. The Christopher Guest movies were improvised. People always ask that. How much of that was improvised? It's all improvised. You get a script. You get about 12 pages of an outline. In fact, the third movie we did, I think, was A Mighty Wind. I looked through the script, and I had to call him. I said, you know, I'm not in this script. They said, oh, on page 13 we should put in Fred Talks. So it was totally everything you kind of knew. My favorite was Waiting for Guffman, because that was one that was so much fun. I was working with people I admired, Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, and then Christopher cut so much out of the films. He did about 30 hours and cut it down to 85 minutes. And we were at a press thing at the big hotel down here, and Catherine O'Hara says, Fred, have you seen the movie? I said, not yet. She said, so everyone was cut. So when we did Best in Show, I said, I'm the announcer here. And he sent me a tape of the Westminster Dog Show. That was Joe
Garagiola,
the great ball player, the announcer. And I said, this is going to end up on the cutting room floor or just a voiceover. I prepared all these jokes you'd have about a dog. I went into Vancouver and I had dinner that night with Eugene Levy and Chris. And the first thing I said to him, I said, have there been a lot of Shih Tzu jokes? And he said, no, not yet. I said, there will be after tomorrow. So Jim Pinnock, who played with the announcer, the English guy, people say he was a real dog show announcer. No, he was an actor. They flew him in from London to Vancouver. He had to be back in London. He was working on an English sitcom. And they had us out the next day to do press. They put us in a tuxedo and makeup, and we sat there all day, and they showed us tape of what we would be seeing the next day. And then they came to us and they said, would you rather do this tomorrow after you've done the job? And I said, well, speaking for myself, we're here, let's do it now. And he said, well, you're speaking for both of us. So we did it, and that night he called me in the hotel and said, Fred, we're not on the goddamn schedule tomorrow. I've got to be back in London. So they filmed it all in about 4 or 5 hours there. In front of nothing. We just rolled, and Christopher was wonderful. We'd do a take, and he'd walk up and he'd say, okay, Fred. I said, is that funny? He'd say, yeah. Now here's what we're going to do. So that was, oh, anyway, I was talking about improvisation. It can be scary as hell. It's wonderful if you do it, and if you're working with people, and it comes off great. But if it doesn't, you feel like the tightrope walker when a big wind comes up. Oh, geez, now I have to look good falling. So it's very, if there's any improv performance here, I always advise you to do is get up, get into a scene. If you get into a group, don't try to be funny. You don't have to be funny. Just get into the flow like any day. And pretty soon if you're funny, it'll be funny. And if not funny, it might be interesting. And just get your feet wet and try it there. Okay, any other questions? Oh, I'm
yes,
sure
who are your favorite silent and early sound comedians, and did you adapt anything from their characters?
Well, my favorites, strangely enough, Charlie Chaplin never... There seemed to be a lot of bending over and kicking the pants. I know he was a genius, but... it just like, boom. But he was just, I mean, very influential. I think as more as he got into the talkies, with the great dictator, I mean, he just changed everything. So he was one of them. But I always enjoyed just the little funny guys. There was a Charlie Chase. Was there a Charlie Chase? Looked like my father. He had a mustache. I was sad. I was watching him. A little heralded, but he reminded me of my father. I saw in this theater Laurel and Hardy in their first movie. They weren't even working as a team. I think Hardy was a policeman and Laurel was something like that. But there was a lot of early history. Mabel Normand. I came in one night. I said, "Who is that?" She was so wonderful. I was talking to Hadrian about this. You see why these people were stars. It wasn't just that they grabbed someone off the street and put them in, you know, they really had that character and the big eyes, and there was something really there. And there's I like to think it's true that Clara Bow, they would say, in the early 70s, would come and hang out at the box office and talk to the lady at the box office while her films were playing in here. So I don't know, I was more influenced, I think, in the later years when I was little by the movies Bob Hope, Red Skelton, Danny Kaye, Abbott and Costello. And I would love it when they break the fourth wall. They'd be doing a scene and suddenly turn to the audience and get all over this guy here. This is something I'd never seen before. And I said, that's just wonderful. And Bob Hope was so brash. And just the jokes in the later years, you hear, hey, how about that? He said, that's not even a funny joke, but you laugh because the rhythm was right there. Yeah, and she had garters on too, but I want to tell you. So that's really what influenced me there. And then later, the later comics, the influence changed to just jealousy. Oh yeah, Jim Carrey. Well, he is very good, I gotta admit that. Yeah, he's good, yeah. No, but it was too late for me to be influenced by any of them. Other people that influenced me, Shecky Greene, seeing him on stage. I don't know if you ever saw him in Vegas. A lot funnier than his name would indicate, Shecky. You know, they always say, hey, Shecky, I was going down to the deli the other day, but he was so wonderful. You'd go to see him in Vegas, and he would never do the same act twice. Don Rickles, Sam Kinison, of course, Sam, needless to say. these guys, Robert Klein, my very good friend, I was in Second City with, influenced me. Silent Stars was just wonderful. It must have been wonderful to be here in the late middle 20s and be in silent films when there are like 4 little stores on Hollywood Boulevard. And so it was an interesting question, but no one really influenced me from the silent film, but a little later on, the talkies.
I have a question.
Yes.
What about Get Smart? How'd that happen?
Get Smart, the scene with the pantomime, the gun thing. That was a partner I had, his name was Vic Greco. We started out in New York. We were a comedy team, and that was a bit that I had written. It was just a kind of a pantomime bit, and someone saw it. And they said, we'd like to use this, and you'll play 2 detectives in this Get Smart. And we said, sure, that's great. And I think at the time they paid us like a fantastic, like $800 for both of us. It was wonderful. But it was one of the first things I ever did. And we came into our agent's office, and I said, my partner said, hey, they want to use that as a pilot for your own series. I said, that's great. And my partner said, but we're not going to do it. Because our agent said, you're not going to get that as a pilot for $800. So there's your Hollywood agent at work. So they said, okay, never mind.
Fred.
You've already got me started on agents. Yes.
One of the things I was curious about as you were talking about the comic styles that you liked is, in a lot of ways, as I watched the various clips over the last day or two, I kind of began to see you as like the sweetest shock comic ever. I mean, you say so many kind of inappropriate or...
Oh my God, I was not... that inappropriate.
But it's gentled somehow. Yeah, but it's gentled somehow by this character. Was there like a conscious construction of a certain way?
It was just an innocence that, you know, I think that the naive person can say, you know, there's so many Jews, but not mean it. There's no, but that character, what I love is that there's nothing behind what he says. You know, there's no agenda there. What he says is what he means. You know, your name is Harlem, which is interesting. But he doesn't hate black people, he doesn't hate Jews, he doesn't hate Italians, he loves them, but he just doesn't know. He's repeating what other people have said. So I was really shocked by some of the things, especially when I took off on Jeffrey Tambor there. I remember that. I think the next thing he did, he played a blind man on TV. I think it struck him blind. I can't see. If Fred Willard's going to be on the show, no, I'm going to be a blind man. It's not going to appeal to the general public. I want to be blind.
There's somebody over here?
Yes.
Hi, and to keep it with the spirit of Father's Day, I want to say I really loved your turn on Modern Family as the dad.
Oh, yes. Again, I worked with those producers, Christopher Lloyd and Steve Levitan, and on a wonderful series, Back to You, with Kelsey Grammer. And Ty Burrell was on there. It was a newsroom, and he was the on-the-street reporter. And the writer's strike interfered. But we did 17 or 18. I'm not complaining. If you just get on a pilot, and Kelsey Grammer, Patty Heaton, and then they did Modern Family. And I watched it once. I said, yeah, this is funny. This is pretty good. Yeah, but you know, you switch around. Everything comes on new in the fall. And then they called me and they said, you'll come on. You'll be Ty Burrell's father, which I'm not old enough to do, but so I went on, and then I started watching. I realized how funny this show is, and I'm the dad, and they don't. And I've done 2 of them, and people say, "Are you going to be on this season?" I say, "It looks good, because if not, they would say, thanks so much for being with us, Fred." What they did though, they called and they said, "Would you send us a photo? We're going to put it in the hall because you're part of the family now. So maybe I'll be on again." And it's a wonderful show. Our young man, Ty Burrell, is just wonderful. He's an up-and-coming actor, and I love him. What else was I going to talk about here? I was going to mention... Anyway, is there another question? Or I'll get on to...
What do you say we start a campaign to get you the whole Saturday Night Live next year?
Yeah! Wait a minute, I'm not as old as Betty White. Is that... That's a wonderful show. You know, they put down Saturday Night Live. Every year for 40 years they've been saying, oh, this show is dead. It's still the show. I never miss it. It's really the hippest. It's really a great show. I'd love to be on it again. And, but I don't know. Huh? Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, I'll make a call.
Time for
Irvin, get me a shot on SNL. I'll talk to Lauren. Get Lauren on the phone. Lauren! How about putting me on? Okay, no, not this week. No, next week. Well, bump him. To hell with it. That's how I actually got on. They were supposed to have Muhammad Ali on. And he canceled. And we were at an Emmy Award. And the 79 SNL people were over there. And my wife said, you should go over and say hello to them. I knew them all. I knew Bill Murray and all of them. And I said, I don't want to. And she's going on. So I went over and said, hi, how are you? Oh, we're big fans. And a week later they called. They said, we'd like you to host the show. So I was thrilled. I did it once, and it was just great. I also think John Belushi was very instrumental in getting me on, because I'd seen the first show or two, and I just loved it. And he walked into the Improv one night. I said, John, how are you? And he knew me because we were both from Second City in Chicago. I said, you got to tell people about this show. I took him around the Improv and introduced him to John Belushi from Saturday Night Live. And I think he was instrumental in getting me on, too. He was a wonderful guy. He passed away much too soon. All right. That's a Father's Day.
One more question.
One more question. And then afterwards, we're back here. We'll have, if you want to, down the street to Cantor's. Maybe if you want to go to Cantor's.
No, we have sandwiches.
We got sandwiches, but
and
maybe
extra mayonnaise.
So you've been so wonderful to come down tonight. If you want to come backstage and purchase a sandwich. No. All right, we have another question, and then answer I just have one more joke about Cantor's. I had to have a physical one time. And it was down in Cedar Sinai. Is that the one down here? In the third? And you can't eat after midnight. And so by 10:30 in the morning after my physical, and I went into Cantor's and I ordered a cheese omelet. And as I was eating it, I thought, this is wonderful. I'm so hungry. And isn't it wonderful to think that the rest of my life, anytime I want to, I can come in here and get a cheese omelet. Anyway, I ordered a glass of orange juice. They said, you want the large or the small? I said, the large. So they brought over a glass about that tall. I called the waiter over and I said, is this the large? He says, yes, that's the large. He said, you don't want to order the small. All right.
One more question.
Unfortunately, I love Cantor's. I tell everyone to go. Everyone I talk to, I don't want to go to Canada. Unfortunately, I had a contretemps the last time I was there at Cantor's with the assistant manager at the church. It all came down from the fact that they add a 18% gratuity if there's more than six people. And I brought in like 12 people. They had this a wonderful restaurant. And anyway, it ended up in saying, I didn't want to go in there. Don't come back. You're the one. You're the troublemaker. You're not welcome here. Thank you. But I just brought 12. No, thank you, sir. Oh. All right, one more question. You've been wonderful. Thanks for coming out for Father's Day. Why the heck not? Come to Father's Day. You can celebrate Father's Day, and we're here. A question, yeah. Oh, question? Yeah.
What were you like in middle school?
Middle school? Is that what, you're from London? Is it? Actually, I was the class clown. I was the, and I look back on it, it wasn't very nice. I remember making our teacher cry once. But and then I would say, it's not my fault, because if the kids would laugh, I would say something. But I tell kids that now, I said, it's not fair. The teachers do a wonderful job, and it's hard enough. So it's nice to have a personality in middle school. Is it what? It's like I was from Middlesex too, which is always a puzzling word. Middlesex, really? So I was a class clown. Plus, I heard that I knew Bob Hope was from Cleveland, and one of my teachers, her mother had gone to school with Bob Hope. So he was the class clown too. So I was very influenced. I thought I'd take you up to Bob Hope. Was that a fair question? He was a photographer.
No, he just helps us bring up some stools.
Well, sounds like my... Here's our assistant proctologist. He'll bring up some stools. Are any of these yours? I don't know. Geez, I don't know. You don't keep records? Well, no, I don't know. We're very busy in here. We've had cutbacks. Can you recognize this? Hey, that's a minute. I can get up at the end. All right, there's one more question and then we're going to go. Then I'm going to close the show with One Night with You with the band. Are they here yet? And one more question.